Let's get into the fourth, John Doe versus, let's get into the third man, the fourth accuser. Again, if you guys want to know the jurisdiction, the venue, all the legal stuff, who the parties are, it's every Diddy and every business he ever owned. But if you actually want to know who the parties are and blah, 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 please rewind to the beginning of the live. We're getting into the fourth lawsuit of John Doe versus Sean Combs. They said in 2008, plaintiff worked as an advisor for Echo Clothing and had been employed by the company for approximately 7 years. Echo Clothing at the time was among the most popular clothing, one of the most popular clothing lines in the country. In 2008, Diddy's Sean John clothing line was also hitting peak popularity. Plaintiff had in fact met Diddy several times in connection with Diddy, right? Listen. In 2008, Combs Sean John clothing line was also hitting peak popularity. Plaintiff had in fact met Diddy several times in connection with Diddy's development and marketing of the clothing line. Mark Echo and Sean John were competing lines within the clothing industry, both having had a large amount of success within the hip hop community. Moreover, both lines had relationships with and arrived at the time by Macy's, a well-known department store. Do you think this one is why Macy's might have actually? Do you think this is why Macy's might have actually dumped Sean John's line? Okay, let's get into this, right? In around May 2008, okay, plaintiff was in the stockroom. So let's call him John, was in the stockroom at Macy's flagship store at Herald Square in Manhattan when Diddy and 3 of his bodyguards came into the stockroom. John happened to walk up to Diddy and his bodyguards at a T conjunction in the stockroom. So they were, I guess, at the, in the aisle, and he was coming in from one of the hallways in the stockroom. So he happened to come upon him. And it didn't give John any room to get around him. They said Diddy was flanked by 2 large bodyguards to the left and 1 large bodyguard to the right. Immediately after turning the corner in the stockroom, John was hit hard around the base of the neck, possibly with a pistol. The blow forced John to his hands and knees. As he looked up, he saw that each of the bodyguards had bangs, runs, had pow-pows in their waistband. He heard multiple voices call out things like, I'll kill you. He approached John while John was still on his hands and knees. And, oh my God. On his hands and knees and said, suck my blank, Echo, referring to the clothing line that plaintiff worked for. Why would he be messing with John? What he got to do with Mark? He is an employee. He said, suck my blank, Echo, referring to the clothing line that John worked for. Oh my God. He thereafter forced his blank into the plaintiff's mouth and proceeded to forcefully and brutally, orally grape plaintiff. What? Oh my God. Oh my God. So he's in the stockroom putting stuff. He works for Mark Echo. He's not Mark Echo. He is an employee. He went into the stockroom. He came out, and it was like a hallway and a pathway. It was a T conjunction. He literally came up on Diddy. 3 of his bodyguards, one of the bodyguards he believes pistol whipped him and then hit him again and knocked him to his knees. Diddy and his psychotic then said, suck my blank, Echo. Mind you, this is an employee, not even Mark Echo. He said, suck my blank, Echo. And then forcibly, he proceeded to force his blank into the person's mouth and proceeded to forcefully, brutally, orally grape them. He continued for at least 2 minutes until he made a deposit in the person's mouth. While orally graping him, Diddy grabbed John's hair and made derogatory comments like, you like that, white boy? Y'all, the fact that Mark Agnifilo got Diddy out there talking about this is going to be a story of love, redemption, whatnot. And Diddy was, and here's the thing, these are just the people that felt like they had proof and came forward. There's a lot of people are saying Diddy did this about, but they don't really have proof, or they're too embarrassed to come forward. This is wild. After he was finished, Diddy threw John's head aside and said words to the effect of, "Shut up or I will kill you." Diddy and his bodyguards began to leave, taunting John as they did. Diddy proceeded to gather Sean John merchandise from the stockroom. Wait, this happened at Macy's? Oh my God, you guys. This happened in May 2008 in the stockroom of Macy's flagship store at Herald Square in Manhattan. Is this why Macy's dropped Sean John's line? Are they trying to distance and limit their liability? Anyway, right? After he was finished, he threw John's head aside and said words to the effect of, "Shut up or I'll kill you." Diddy and his bodyguards began to leave, taunting John as they did. He proceeded to gather Sean John merchandise from the stockroom. He left the stockroom and headed out to the Macy's retail floor, where he began passing out merchandise to an adoring crowd as if nothing happened. Diddy is a monster. But also, Macy's ain't get this on security. Anybody that's ever worked retail know that they got cameras everywhere in the stockroom because they swear that that their employees are trying to rob them blind. And maybe they are because they only pay 2 cents, $2.50 an hour. But there's cameras in every single section of a stockroom. That's how you prevent employee theft. So how come Macy's didn't know about this? All right. They get this. In shock and traumatized, he gathered himself and went to Macy's security to report the assault. By this point, Diddy and his bodyguards had left the store. Plaintiff was told that someone would speak with him, but no one ever did. Shortly thereafter, Macy's stopped letting John into his flagship store in Herald Square. Approximately three weeks later, Terry Lundgren, CEO of Macy's, pressured Echo executives to fire John because Macy's had just signed a multi-million-dollar deal with Sean John Clothing. Echo thereafter terminated John from employment, and John was told he could no longer live in his company-paid apartment. Plaintiff is informed and believes that the report of the assault was destroyed or otherwise purged from Macy's records, and no action was ever taken as a result of the report. Plaintiff ultimately had to move out of New York. He still fears for his life as a result of the incidents and threats made against him on that day, including the fact that Diddy was known, that plaintiff was known to Combs by way of his work with rivaling clothing company Echo. So let's look at this. It's horrifying that actually happened. Imagine somebody graping you for no reason. Diddy just saw this man, decided he wanted to grape him. His security guards knocked him to his knees. He did it in front of Diddy's security, and then they all went and laughed at him and then passed out merchandise on the floor. He reported the Macy's. Macy's said, "Oh, we're going to talk to you," and never did. Then he reported it. Then he tried to get report it to his company. They didn't do anything. Now, some people might be saying, "Oh, well, what proof is it true?" The fact that he is saying that the CEO of Macy's, the CEO of a company, contacted Echo and said, "Yo, we're signing a multi-million-dollar deal with Diddy. Fire that man." To me, it makes everything he's saying true. Because why would a CEO of Macy's, and that was in Macy's prime, they had things everywhere, and this is a flagship store, ever care about what another company's employee is doing? Literally, that's all he was. He was like a merchandiser, or he was in charge of dressing. Did he grape someone in broad daylight, just like he did with the guy in the van, just like he did with the girl?